So up until August 10th of last year, when I retired, I had been a police officer for almost 40 years, 27 of that with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and 20 years as a homicide detective.
Okay. Currently, what do you do? Do you have a new profession, or at least a follow-up of your police work?
I'm a contract investigator for the Clark County District Attorney's Office, and I have my own company, and that's what I do currently.
Were you hired by our office to prepare kind of a PowerPoint analyzing video surveillance?
I was.
And just to be clear, this was this video surveillance that you had collected when you were working as a homicide detective with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department?
Correct. On September 3rd, myself and other members of my squad responded to Mr. Gurman's residence in connection with a body that had been found in a suspicious homicidal death. I was one of the later detectives to respond, and my job at that point was to assist the other lead detectives in the case and locate surveillance video in the area of the crime.
All right. So let's talk about that first. So this PowerPoint, you prepared this PowerPoint, is that correct?
I did.
Tell this jury a little bit about the process that you and your fellow detectives, as well as patrol officers, conducted to collect all of the footage that we are about to see.
So the collection of this video actually occurred over a couple of days. On the day of our initial response to the scene, we canvassed the area looking for surveillance cameras that are located on the outside of houses, businesses that might be surrounding the area, any other type of surveillance cameras, whether they be stationary or mobile cameras that could be in the area. And then we make contact with the people who are at that residence or that business and attempt to collect video from them. In this case, there was a house directly across the street which had cameras that faced Mr. Gurman's residence. Down the street, there were a couple other houses. Some of them did not have any surveillance that was available, either because the camera didn't record it or it wasn't within the range of the camera. I recovered some surveillance video from a house at the corner of Wintergreen and Bronze Circle, which actually showed the arrival of the suspect vehicle and the suspect walking along the Wintergreen Drive.
I want to jump ahead just for 1 second before we start moving on to your PowerPoint. You mentioned you found footage on Wintergreen of the suspect vehicle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. In your line of work, whether it's in a residential area like in the outdoors or maybe at a casino, is there a process that if you find a suspect or a person of interest, is there a method in which you try to track the movements of someone?
Yes. So once we collect surveillance video and we collect it for a certain time frame where we believe the crime occurred or where the suspect may have been in the area, at that point we start reviewing the camera footage from the time that we get it until the time that video footage ends, looking for the suspect. If we find the suspect or the suspect's vehicle in any of those video clips, then what we do is start going backwards and looking further down the street, around the corner, down the other streets, businesses that are in the area, to see if we can determine when the suspect or the suspect's vehicle arrived in the area and when it left and what route it took to either arrive at the scene or depart from the scene.
And so ultimately you are trying to find ideally the ultimate origin, let's say in this case the suspect car, trying to find the ultimate origin of that suspect car, and you're trying to find the final destination of the car. Would that be fair?
That's correct.
Can you tell, once you found this vehicle, were you able to track it beyond just Wintergreen and Bronze Circle? Were you able to start collecting surveillance that extended beyond just those couple of streets?
Yes.
Okay, how far out are you going, sir?
Miles. I think it's actually driving the route. It's approximately 5.4 miles out that we went to collect video.
So you just kind of start hitting businesses or restaurant or residences kind of all along this route that you believe this car is taken?
Correct.
And that's what you did in this case?
Yes.
How did you do that? Is it just a one-person job? How many officers took part in this?
So there were 6 people on my squad. We had other detectives that assisted us. There were detectives from the digital forensic unit that helped us. We had other units within the Metropolitan Police Department that assisted us in canvassing the area for surveillance video. All told, I believe I probably had 25 detectives looking for surveillance video.
Have you ever heard of the term of kind of gridding something out?
Yes.
What does that mean?
So it's just giving areas of responsibility to different detectives to look for surveillance video within that area.
Okay, let's start getting to it. What do we see here? What is on this first slide?
So this first slide, there was a multitude of surveillance video cameras that were located. We were able to collect surveillance video from several of the digital video recorders. Some of it was of evidentiary value, some of it was not. This right here is a listing, just the first 6, of locations that had video that was of an evidentiary value that I used in constructing this PowerPoint.
And let me just stop you right there. And just to be clear, the suspect vehicle is not the only thing that you were tracking, correct, in terms of this PowerPoint and the compilation of the video. Is that right?
That's correct. We also tracked the victim.
Okay, so for example, I see number 3. What's significant about number 3?
So number 3 is a Roberto's Taco Shop. It's located just north of Charleston on Rainbow, and the victim actually went there at about 9 o'clock in the morning on September 2nd, 2022.
And I see these, you kind of have these parentheses for each one. I'm talking about DVR time. Why did you put that there, Detective?
So this gives us the approximate offset time from the actual time versus what was on the DVR. A lot of times DVR times are off. Sometimes they're way off. It just depends how the system is connected. If it's connected to the internet, then the time is normally accurate. If it's not, and it relies on somebody at the business to set the time, then the time can be off by any amount. And I always, if I'm within a minute, I normally just call it like 12:30. It could be 12:31, it could be 12:29, but I just give that 60 seconds in there for error.
Okay. Are these just another, I guess, 7 sources of camera footage that we're ultimately going to see?
This is just a continuation of where we recovered surveillance video that had an evidentiary value.
Is this additional footage?
Correct.
And additional footage?
Yes.
So I see the last number here is 22. So there's 20 different cameras that were used to put this presentation together.
22.
Was this kind of what you were just kind of talking to us about?
Yes.
Sorry, if I jumped ahead, I apologize, Detective. What is significant about this slide, sir?
So after we identified the suspect in the case as Mr. Tejas, then what I did was just use what I felt was probably one of the most direct routes that would give me an idea of the distance between Mr. Tejas' residence and Mr. Gurman's residence. In this case, it's approximately 5.3 miles.
And this is kind of the path that you ultimately can follow with the suspect vehicle, correct?
Yes.
What is this?
So this is a photograph of Mr. Gurman's Honda Civic.
Okay. And what is this?
And this is a photograph of Mr. Tejas' maroon GMC Yukon Denali.
We'll talk about this Denali in a little bit once we're kind of through the footage, because I'll have to switch over to the other projector, but let's look at this. How are we going to start?
So this is the first movement of the victim. At about 8:47 in the morning, he leaves his residence. The direction of travel he went was north on Wintergreen, and then we don't have any surveillance video of him after he goes north on Wintergreen. And so this, where the red circle is just his vehicle leaving Bronze Circle from the direction of his residence. And then again, I did the same thing, just an approximate route that I believe Mr. Gurman would have taken to get to Roberto's Taco Shop, and that's approximately 2.4 miles.
What are we looking at here?
So this is Roberto's Taco Shop at 907 South Rainbow at about 9:04 in the morning. And again, this is a corrected time. So when I say corrected, it's just corrected for the differentiation from the actual time and the DVR time. And this, the victim arrives in his vehicle and parks in the parking lot on the south side of the business. And then this camera right here is the approximate location of the camera that captured that. This is Mr. Gurman arriving. So the clothing that Mr. Gurman is wearing was important to me later on in my examination of the surveillance video, because this is the same clothing he wears when he comes out of his house.
What are we looking at this slide?
This is just a photograph of Mr. Gurman at the cash register inside the Roberto Taco Shop, and that's, again, about 9:04 in the morning.
All right, so we've now moved on to a new slide. What is significant about 9601 Red Hills Drive?
So this is the, I hope I pronounce this right, Pidgeot Elementary School. It is directly south of the road leading to Mr. Gurman's, or Mr. Tejas' residence.
So if you can show us, where's Mr. Tejas' residence?
Right up here where the red pin is.
Okay, is that, I'm gonna walk up here. Is this a driveway? Is that what we're looking at? Is that a driveway out onto Spanish Steps?
Yes.
Okay, so if you just pulled out of that driveway and came down Silk Castle, that would be the straight route if Mr. Tejas was leaving his house to make his way out, I guess, out in that direction. Would that be fair?
Correct. It's just a short eastbound jaunt and then south onto the street.
So just to be clear, this is at 9:10 in the morning. What are we gonna see footage of here?
So this, you'll see Mr. Tejas arriving at his residence, and you'll see the red Yukon Denali traveling westbound and then northbound.
So back in the direction of his house.
Correct.
And just to be clear, you said that the process is you start with the car and then you start working in a direction, collect video, right? Until you
Yes.
find the final destination, right?
Correct.
So this is the final origin spot, correct?
Yes.
But you had to look at video prior to this, seeing the path of travel from the Bronze Circle residence, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, or Wintergreen, right? Thank you. All right, so we've got, just to go back, so we're at about 9:10 in the morning for Tejas' Denali at this point, correct?
Correct. He's arriving home.
All right, so now, why are we looking at this slide next?
This is another slide of the victim. So at 9:11 in the morning, the victim leaves the restaurant, gets into his car. He travels west in the parking lot, then goes north in front of the Home Depot there at Rainbow and Charleston, and then he turns back out onto Rainbow Boulevard.
Okay, so this is a minute apart, right? So Garman's at the taco shop, Tejas is on his way home,
That's
or in
correct.
that direction at least.
Yes. There's Mr. Gurman leaving the restaurant. And in addition to this, I also looked at the other cameras from these businesses to see if there was another red Yukon Denali that had followed Mr. Gurman there or followed him away, and I did not see one.
So during the time that you have eyes on Mr. Garman's car, at least at this point in time, you're not seeing a red Yukon.
I'm not.
All right. Now, what is significant about this slide?
This is at 9:12 in the morning, again from Pidgeot Elementary School, and this is a camera, same angle as the last time, showing Mr. Tejas arriving. This is showing Mr. Tejas leaving the area of his residence, traveling south, and then traveling east on the street in front of the school.
And that would be Red Hills Road.
Correct.
All right. What are we looking here in this slide?
So this is at 9:19 in the morning. This is a camera that was located at 1405 Wintergreen Drive, which is just southeast of Bronze Circle where the victim lived. The victim drove northbound on Wintergreen Circle and then turned west onto Bronze Circle toward his house.
Has approximately 8 minutes elapsed since he left the Robertos.
Approximately, yes. There's his vehicle, making the westbound turn on Bronze Circle.
And so that's Bronze Circle beyond that tree there?
Yes.
Okay.
And then at 10:03, the victim left his residence again, traveled north on Wintergreen to Vegas Drive. And then this camera is located at 7200 Periwinkle. It's on Wintergreen, just south of Vegas, and it'll show the victim driving north on Wintergreen and then turning eastbound onto Vegas Drive at about 10:03 in the morning.
Did you also, at this point, with this type of footage, look to see if there's any red Yukons following him?
Not yet.
Okay.
Here you can see he makes the turn, and there are no other vehicles that follow him.
All right. What is significant about this slide, sir?
So this is the first time that I captured the red Yukon Denali at 10:26 in the morning, traveling southbound on Rock Springs Drive. This is, you can see in the yellow there where Mr. Gurman's residence is located. It's a couple blocks to the east. And this is again at 10:26 in the morning, and it was captured by a camera on the east side of that address. And then these are just stills as the vehicle drove by too fast to be of any use.
What's significant about this area?
At 10:26 in the morning, further down the street on Rock Springs is Cornflower Drive. This video was recovered from 7125 Cornflower Drive at 10:26 in the morning, and the red Yukon drove west on Cornflower. And it's captured by that camera on the north side of the house.
Okay.
At 10:30 in the morning, the house on the corner of Wintergreen and Vegas at 7200 Periwinkle. The victim drove west on Vegas Drive, then turned southbound onto Wintergreen back into the direction of his house. Again, you can see there are no other vehicles that followed the victim into the neighborhood.
And what's significant about this timestamp?
So at 10:39, saw the red Yukon traveling from westbound Vegas Drive to southbound Wintergreen. This is the same direction that the victim had just traveled. And again, 10:39 in the morning from 7200 Periwinkle, and it was the camera located on the east side of the residence.
If we just go back for a second. So this is at 10:30. So Garman's coming in at 10:30, and this is approximately 9 minutes later.
Yes. And all of these videos are at the actual speed. When I reviewed the surveillance videos, I slowed these down to a quarter to an eighth of the speed so that I could look at details.
What are we looking at here?
So this is a still from that last video from 7200 Periwinkle, and this shows the suspect who's clad in an orange traffic shirt, sitting in the driver's seat. The passenger visor is down and the driver visor is down.
Did that take on later significance for your investigation, Detective?
It did.
Why is that?
When I went to Mr. Teaz's residence several days after the murder, I located that a similar red Yukon Denali parked in his driveway, and everything that I had seen on the surveillance video was similar to Mr. Teaz's video, or to Mr. Teaz's vehicle, including the fact that that passenger visor was still down.
Okay, we're gonna pause that presentation for a second. I want to show counsel 314, 17, 317, 319, 322, 325, and 313. Objections? Okay. Any objections to their admission? No. Okay. At this time, we're going to ask permission to admit states 313, 314, 317, 319, 322, and 325. May I approach the witness?
Objection.
Thank you very much. What I'm going to do to make it a little easier, I'll walk up and show the jury so we don't have to keep moving the computer. But take a look at these exhibits and tell me if you recognize what we're looking at there.
So these are photographs taken of Mr. Teaz's vehicle as it was parked in the driveway in front of his residence on the date that we executed a search warrant.
Now, you mentioned that one of the things that jumped out to you was when you saw that vehicle at his house parked, there was something about the visor that jumped out to you. What was that again?
That the visor was down in the same position that it was in this surveillance picture.
Okay. I want to show you 317 and 319. Is that depicting what you're talking about?
It is.
And is that essentially what you're circling there in that photograph, on that PowerPoint presentation?
That's correct.
Permission to publish to the jury, Your Honor? Thank you very much. Showing the jury 317 and 319.
There's also one other feature that I saw. If you look,
Here, there's no question.
All right. Detective, is there any other features that you noticed?
there was.
Okay, what was it?
If you look at the surveillance photo on the screen, below the visor, on the edge of the window, next to the hood of the car, there's a light-colored area. There was a similar light-colored area on Mr. Teaz's vehicle when I found it parked in his driveway.
Detective Mogg, why don't you step down for a second? Do you see it in this photograph? That light-colored area?
Right there.
Let the record reflect the witness has pointed to the bottom right-hand corner of the front windshield of that Yukon Denali. And it looks almost, it's lighter, I mean, it kind of looks orangish, but it's not quite a rectangle. For the record, you said that jumped out to you when you saw the car in person?
Correct.
I'd like to show you States 317. Do you see it?
Yes.
Can you, why don't you come on down and show them what you saw when you looked at it in person.
So it's this light colored area right there.
Let the record reflect. Again, he's pointed in 317 to kind of a rectangular area right in the bottom corner of that front windshield. What's it say on the front passenger door there? Does that have lettering on that door?
Denali.
Okay, and when we look at 322 here, what does it say on the front passenger door?
Denali.
Tell me about the wheels for a second. Are the rims similar?
They are.
Okay. May I have approaching with stage 322? Here's another question, Detective. The windows, the front passenger windows, anything significant about the front passenger windows as it relates to the rear windows?
So as I reviewed the surveillance video, I noticed that the front driver and front passenger window were not tinted, but the windows behind them were. When I arrived at Mr. Tejas' residence, I noticed that the driver and front passenger window were not tinted and the rest were.
Showing the jury stage 322 and 325. When you watch this video or this Denali on the video surveillance, do you see any bumper stickers or decals or anything like that?
None.
And when you saw Mr. Tejas' or Tellis' car in its driveway, did it have any stickers on it anywhere?
No.
Publishing 313. Okay, let's move back to this presentation. What is significant about this slide, sir?
So this is at 10:39 in the morning, again from the 1405 Wintergreen residence. The red Yukon drove south past the house, and the driver appeared to be the only occupant in the vehicle. And then less than a minute later, that same Yukon drove north on Wintergreen.
Now, did you noted that there was something about the license plate that was significant in the footage?
It didn't appear to have a rear license plate during the time that I saw it driving around the neighborhood.
Now, Detective, how long had you been a police officer for?
About 40 years.
How many years on homicide?
20.
Have you ever had a case when a suspect might, I don't know, remove his license plate when going off to commit a crime?
Yes.
Objection, counsel. Thank you.
Let's move on. What do we have here in this slide?
So this is 37 seconds later at about 10:40 in the morning. The red Yukon drove south on Wintergreen Drive and stopped momentarily across the street from 1405. And this is where it pulls in and stops.
Now, Detective, I don't know if you were familiar with this, but were you aware that there was like a sewer repair project going on in that area?
I was.
So remind me, when you're driving down that road, what street are you heading towards now?
Cornflowers down that way.
Okay.
There's-
I just wanted to see if maybe when we get to a map, I just kind of want to see if you can help me orient that. Why are these pictures isolated?
Those are just two stills of the Yukon and the suspect sitting in the driver's seat as they were parked across the street from 1405.
And any significant about the windows?
Same thing, the front passenger and the front driver window were not tinted, the rest were.
All right. Okay, so cornflower. So this is the area that we're talking about here?
Yes.
Okay, so when we looked at that last footage, is the car, I'm assuming this is north, south, east, west, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so when we saw the footage with the construction truck where there's that interaction, can you come down here and show me where that interaction is? And then where does the red Yukon kind of drive towards?
So this is Bronze Circle right here, Mr. Gurman's residence. The Yukon parked right across the street here for a brief instant. That sewer truck backed up here, and then the Yukon drove south on Wintergreen.
Okay. All right. What is significant about this slide, sir?
At 1048, at 7004 Copperleaf Drive, which is just south of Cornflower, the Yukon drove west in front of that residence, then made a U-turn and went east on Copperleaf Drive.
Is this a still of that footage?
Yes.
What are we looking at here?
This is another video of the Yukon as it drove west on Lunar Light Drive in front of 6905 at about 10:49 in the morning.
Is this a still from that footage?
Yes.
And now what are we looking at here?
10:54 in the morning from 7200 Periwinkle. This is just south of Vegas on Wintergreen. The red Yukon turned south onto Wintergreen Drive from westbound Vegas Drive, and the driver was still wearing the orange shirt.
This is a still from that?
Yes.
Okay. What about this footage here?
So this is 7200 Bronze Circle. It's right at the corner of Bronze Circle and Wintergreen. At 10:56 in the morning, the red Yukon was captured on the surveillance camera on the east side of the house. It stopped briefly, and then it continued south on Wintergreen Drive, and you can see the yellow reflective bands on the suspect's shirt. And then between 10:59 and 11:01, the suspect seen here with the beige gardener hat, the orange shirt with the reflective stripes, the dark pants, and the gray tennis shoes, walked north and south along Wintergreen briefly before he continued north on Wintergreen.
What are we looking at here?
So this is from 1405 Wintergreen Drive. That video was corrupt. It had a lot of blank spaces in it where there was just static. It did not show the arrival of the Denali in front of the residence, but at 11:01 hours when the video started up again, the Denali was already parked.
All right. Now, why is this footage significant, sir?
So this is where I capture the suspect walking south on Wheatland Way. And then after he walks south past 1505 Wheatland, he turns around and walks northbound again up to Periwinkle. And here you can see the suspect with his hat, his jacket, the pants, the shoes, and he was also carrying a bluish gray bag with dark straps on it.
What are we looking at here?
Okay, it's 7200 Bronze Circle. We've seen the video from this house several times. The camera on the east side of the house faces Wintergreen, and this will show the suspect at about 11:16 in the morning walking south on the sidewalk along Wintergreen toward Bronze Circle.
And just to be clear, when we looked at the footage before, we were looking at footage from Wheatland Way, right?
Yes,
And so was the final footage is you walking north around that corner? Is that what we're seeing there?
he's coming south
So he's
on
walking.
Wintergreen toward Bronze Circle,
So he's on that road up there making his way towards Wintergreen.
Periwinkle, yes.
Is that, I can't see the brown circle blocking it. Would it say Periwinkle behind the brown circle?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that's what we see on the previous footage. And now we're going to see some continuation. Yeah?
Correct.
Okay.
This is the suspect, still dressed the way he was on the previous video, walking south toward Bronze Circle.
What are we looking at here?
This is, again, the same camera, faces northwest from 1405 Wintergreen toward Bronze Circle, and you can see the suspect at about 11:17 walking westbound on Bronze Circle along the sidewalk.
All right, what is significance about the next slide?
So this is surveillance video from directly across the street from Mr. Gehrman's residence. It's located at 7217 Bronze Circle. At about 11:17 in the morning, the suspect walks westbound on Bronze Circle, where the red dotted line is, to the west side of Mr. Gehrman's residence. When he leaves, several minutes later, he walks back eastbound on Bronze Circle toward Wintergreen, where the blue dotted line is.
Okay, so the red dotted line signifies the approach and the blue signifies the exit.
Yes. So you can see the suspect in the upper part of the video.
There's not additional footage at
No,
this point?
just click it again.
Okay.
Right, this is another camera on that same residence, and this is facing north toward Mr. Gehrman's garage and the west side of his house. And you can see the suspect walking across the driveway up to the gate area on the west side of the house. Okay, you can go to the next slide.
What are we looking
So
at here?
11:21 hours, the victim's garage door opens, and then you'll see Mr. Gehrman walk from the right side of the screen to the left side of the screen back to that gate area. And he's wearing the same clothes that he was wearing at the time that he was at the Roberto Taco Shop. And as soon as he gets back near the gate, you'll see the suspect come out. Right there. So the attack occurs over here on the west side of the garage. And here comes the suspect. And now he's going to leave the area eastbound on Bronze Circle. This is back to the other camera angle at the same address. You can see him walking along the sidewalk again. And he continues walking eastbound to Wintergreen.
What are we looking at here?
This is 11:25 in the morning. The camera at 1405 Wintergreen Drive. The suspect walked to the red Yukon from Bronze Circle. He put his bag into the left rear seat. Then he got into the driver's seat and drove south on Wintergreen.
What are we
This is
looking at
just
here?
a still of the suspect getting into the driver's seat. And you can see the same hat, same jacket, pants, and shoes.
Moving on, what are we looking at here?
And this is 11:30 at 1501 Rock Springs Drive, which was an apartment complex located on Rock Springs. Recorded the suspect's red Yukon driving north on Rock Springs Drive toward Vegas Drive.
Is this just a still from that?
That's correct.
What do we have here?
So this is 11:29 in the morning from the address at 7200 Periwinkle, again, the corner of Wintergreen and Vegas. And it shows the red Yukon turning from westbound Vegas Drive to southbound Wintergreen at 11:29 in the morning.
Is this a still of that?
Yes.
What do we have in this slide?
We're back to 7200 Bronze Circle, the address directly across the street from Mr. Gehrman's residence. At 11:29, the suspect's red Yukon drove westbound on Bronze Circle, pulled up in front of Mr. Gehrman's house, stopped. The suspect got out of the driver's seat, went back to the area where the attack occurred, and then returned to his vehicle and left eastbound on Bronze Circle. Next slide. I think I might have froze up.
Oh, okay. We'll go back. Well, let's see. Let's see if I can do it. See if this does it. Let me do this. Let me close out of it. Let's just reopen it. I think we were, is this where we were? I feel like this is where we
Yes.
were.
This is the Denali arriving. Stopping in front of Mr. Gehrman's residence. And there's the suspect. making a U-turn and going back eastbound on Bronze Circle. Then you'll see it turn northbound onto Wintergreen. And again, 7200 Periwinkle, the intersection of Wintergreen and Vegas Drive. You'll see the red Yukon traveling northbound on Wintergreen, and then it makes a westbound turn onto Vegas.
What are we looking at here?
So this is Sunspot Street. The house actually backs up to Washington, and there's a camera located at the back of the residence that faces south toward Washington, covers kind of the backyard area of the house. At 11:35, the suspect's red Yukon drove west on Washington Avenue from Tenaya Way.
Is that a screen grab of that car driving by?
It is, and then that is a highlighted area where there appears now to be a license plate on the vehicle. So this is the Winco Food at 7501 West Washington. It's further west than the last still photo that you saw. At 11:36, the suspect's red Yukon continued westbound on Washington toward Buffalo.
Is that a still of that?
It is. And again, you can see the white spot on the rear of the car where it appears now that the license plate has been reattached. This is the Arco gas station in 901 North Buffalo. It's at the northwest corner of Buffalo and Washington, and it has cameras that face east and south, and it captured the red Yukon arriving at the intersection, going through the intersection, turning southbound onto Buffalo at about 9:36 and 9:37 in the morning.
9:36?
11:36
Okay.
and 11:37.
And those are just stills reflecting that?
Yes.
Okay. What do we see here?
This is the P.F. Chang restaurant at 1095 South Rampart. It's at the corner, northwest corner of Rampart and Charleston, and it has cameras on both the east side and the south side of the business, which cover Rampart and Charleston. And at about 11:47 in the morning, the red Yukon drove south on Rampart toward Charleston.
And it's about a 5-mile distance between these two residences, is that correct?
Approximately, yes.
Is this the still footage from that P.F. Chang's?
Yes. Vehicle then turned westbound onto Charleston, and at 11:48, the camera on the south side of the P.F. Chang's captured the vehicle as it drove westbound.
Is that a still of that footage?
Yes.
All right, what are we looking at here?
We continued canvassing further west on Charleston, and there was a camera located at the entrance of the Avondale Apartments at 9225 West Charleston, and 11:48 in the morning, it captured the red Yukon traveling westbound on Charleston toward Apple.
And is that just in the corner over there, is that the P.F. Chang's?
Yes.
Okay. And to the right corner for the record. Is this a still from that Avondale footage?
Correct.
What are we looking at here?
So at 11:50 in the morning, the cameras at the Thomas and Mack medical offices located at 9499 West Charleston Boulevard captured the red Yukon traveling south on Apple.
Is that the footage?
Yes.
And what are we looking at here?
And now we're back to Pidgeot Elementary School at 9601 Red Hills Drive. At 11:51 in the morning, it captured the red Yukon traveling traveling westbound on Red Hills and then making a northbound turn onto Silk Tassel toward Mr. Tejas' residence.
And if we could just go back for a second, where is Red Hills in relation to we're going to look at that slide in a minute. Can you show us where Red Hills is in relation to the previous footage? Maybe just come down and show us.
So Apple Drive is right here, and then this is Red Hills.
And is this the Piggott Elementary here?
Yes.
And this is that road that gets to this house? Okay. Thank you. Let the record reflect the witness identified a road that was kind of yellow highlighted going vertically on the picture as being Apple. And then he indicated the yellow highlighted road going left to right as being Red Hills. And then indicated a road in between Spanish Steps and Red Hills as Tassel.
Silk Tassel.
Silk Tassel. Sorry about that. So I have a couple other questions. You mentioned that you did extensive canvassing, is that correct?
Yes,
Did you, ultimately there's a search warrant executed at Mr. Tellis's house, correct?
that's correct.
Was there a search for surveillance cameras attached to that house?
There was.
Were you able to collect any footage from that house?
I located a camera. If you're looking at the garage, it would be up near the roof line to the right. The residence was searched for digital video recorders by other detectives and digital forensic detectives. We were unable to recover any digital surveillance video from that camera. They did recover some from a Ring camera, but it had no evidentiary value.
Was anything disconnected?
I don't recall whether anything was disconnected or it was just not recording.
Okay, so the bottom line is you couldn't get anything from that house, even though there are cameras at that house.
That's correct.
Here's another question. Did you canvass or search that neighborhood to see if there were any other red Yukon Denali's in his neighborhood?
I drove the area as part of the surveillance team, and I didn't see any other red Yukons in that neighborhood. It's a rather small neighborhood.